The Browns begin training camp in what, 2 weeks? 2 weeks and change? Something like that. When's the exact date?
I believe it's the 29th.
Yeah.
All right, so 3 weeks and change. But it'll be here before you know it, Jason. I know you're excited about it.
Can't wait.
Breaking it down, seeing the stats that ESPN Cleveland puts up.
It's my favorite part.
On the quarterback comparison, which is people embarrass themselves by citing. But we're actually not going to talk about the quarterback situation right now. The Browns, two of their other positions that were terrible last year were wide receiver and offensive line. The Browns used a lot of capital, both financially and draft pick-wise, to address those positions. They added 2 new wide receivers high in the draft, then signed 3 free agent offensive linemen, re-signed another, and drafted 3 more, including 1 high. So I'll ask you, G. Bush, which unit has improved the most, wide receiver or offensive line?
It's kind of tough because I wish I could say wide receiver. I wish. But you can't just pencil. I may like the potential of your receiving room. I may like the skill set that you guys have showed in college, but I can't just jump off the roof and say, oh, they're going to be completely better than guys who have played in the league before, right? So I like what Concepcion is. I like what Denzel Boston is. You know, I like those 2 additions because I think it raises the floor a little bit. It gives you a little bit better skill set and the ability to get some big plays. But for me, I would have to say offensive line because you use your highest pick on an offensive lineman, and he looks like he's going to be starting from day one. You also went out and you got 3 free agents, as you spoke about. Now, those guys have been a mixed bag in terms of production and in terms of their injury history, so that has to be taken into account for. But for the most part, we started this year with nobody under contract, guys retired, and I think that they put their most resources to the offensive line. I think that they're doing a more of a committee thing where we just need bodies. We can't get to the season and the 4th game we looking on the practice squad, or we got to give contracts to dudes who don't even, is off the streets. At least you got some capital invested in free agents that have experience. You've invested picks in guys. If those guys are hurt, Brailsford is a guy who could be in contention for playing if Jenkins is not ready to go. So are they proven? And are they going to be like a top 10 O-line? You can't say that. But I like the fact that they have upgraded and gave me more bodies to work with and a bigger body of work up front with the offensive line and Warhop. I like that just a little bit better. But I also think the most impactful will be for a quarterback. I think the most impactful is the upside of the receivers. But as of now, the improvement, I have to go with the offensive line.
Jason?
Yeah, I can't argue that. You're talking about potential versus production, and at least all across the line, they added veterans. Now, was it wise to sign Tytus Howard to an extension? We'll find out. But for now, I think you have to take what's there versus what you hope will be there with a lot of the picks that they made at receiver. And frankly, the bar was low at both spots, but probably even lower across the offensive line. So you don't have to do a whole lot to improve greatly coming off of where they were last year. So yeah, I think it probably is the offensive line. I'm curious to see how this shakes out if Brailsford grabs that starting job or if they go with Elgton Jenkins. Fano, by all accounts, even if he can't stick at left tackle long term, he's going to play somewhere for a long time and be a very productive lineman. So yeah, I'm curious to see what this looks like. Warhop was a great addition in terms of credibility across the league, and that's the first thing I heard when they hired Warhop was that's a big time hire. Like that's a legit dude. So now you got to put it all together. So I'll take the line for now. Both groups obviously have a lot of room to grow based off where last year ended, and hopefully the receivers, being young guys, can come along quickly. But right now, I think it's pretty clear that the history of production has been across the offensive line of guys that they brought in.
So yes, obviously there's more experience, and so my answer is going to be more involved in my prediction more than what's been proven. But the truth is that on paper, I'm not convinced their offensive line is significantly better because part of the reason they struggled was due to injuries last year. So, yeah, by the end of the year, their offensive line was horrible. It wasn't horrible at the beginning of the season. They just had injuries. So, at center, are they better at center? I don't know. Are they better at left guard? I don't think so. Are they better at right guard? I don't know. Are they better at right tackle? Yes. Are they better at left tackle? Probably. Significantly. Okay, so you're better at the tackles. I think at center and guard, you're worse. I know Wyatt Teller got hurt and whatever, but he played most of the season. So, and you lost Joel Bitonio, who's your best offensive lineman. I mean, the left guard's going to be, what's his name, from the Chargers?
Zion Johnson?
He's not better than Joel Bitonio.
Right.
I don't believe that. So I'm not convinced the offensive line. Now, I think the floor, I think the worst parts of the Browns' offensive line, the tackles, are upgraded, and at left tackle, probably significantly upgraded. But I think top to bottom, the offensive line is better, but not as big a difference as some people think. Now, at wide receiver, this is all speculation. But they spent 2 very high picks. You know, just like I'm going to assume Fano is going to be good, I think both wide receivers are going to be good.
Mm-hmm.
And in the offensive line, I need 5 guys to be good. At wide receiver, I need 3 guys to be good. And at the offensive line, to me, I don't have any sure things. At wide receiver, I don't have any sure things either, although Jerry Jeudy, I would say, is a more accomplished wide receiver overall than probably any of the Browns' offense. Maybe not Tytus Howard. I don't know. Maybe Elgton Jenkins, I would say, but Elgton Jenkins is coming off an injury.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then I look at the potential. And while I love the potential of Fano, I think Concepcion and Boston have more potential than anybody else on that offensive line besides Fano. So, due to the fact I think there's more potential at wide receiver, I need less good players at wide receiver. And neither side has really any sure things. I'm going to go wide receiver. Obviously, that's with a lot of optimism for the 2 guys.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll see. I mean, if the question was what unit's going to be better this year, would you still say offensive line or would you say wide receiver?
Well, it all depends on. I think that there's a couple of things that you can change up and you can look at why it might be a little better. So it's tough to look at them in vacuums because the offensive line, in terms of being good and solid, will help your receivers. Because if you have a solid offensive line and you don't have to get rid of the ball in 2 seconds and you got guys jailbreaking coming through in the backfield, you got an opportunity to set something up. But they also help your running game. I will say this. I always talk about, you got a quarterback. That's great. But it's such a luxury to be able to have a dude. And what I mean by that is when you count on Jerry Jeudy, sometimes you can't count on him to make the routine play.
Yeah.
Right? I remember going back against the Cincinnati Bengals, and there's 2 plays in that game where one ball, Joe Flacco hits him in the hands, interception. It's a 3rd down, and everybody's looking around. 3rd down, and no, actually it was a 4th down. The 4th down, and it bounces off his hands.
Hadn't he dropped the 3rd down the play before, I think? And then the 4th down bounced off.
And so now it's a clear turnover. And you're just like, if that's your number 1 receiver, you're asking him to make the routine plays and above and beyond. You're asking him to make some of the 50-50 plays, which he was not able to do. So the goal of what I want to do is I want to look at this situation and say, okay, if Jerry Jeudy is not my number 1 receiver and I got some other guys I can count on, it raises my bar a little bit because at least I can throw a fade up and, hey, looky here. We had a guy come down with it. It wasn't the greatest throw in the world. It was kind of uncontested. It kind of looked like it was going to be out of bounds, but he pulled it down. We're going to take them yards, right? So I do think the impact could potentially be, and then Concepcion can return the return game. Because if I'm looking at the return game, they haven't had nothing since Travis Benjamin. If you can get, 12 yards, 13 yards, 16 yards here, it flips the field position. So that's another way you can look at it. But I just got a hard time and pencil in rookies and being like, oh, yeah, they're going to dominate. It's a learning curve. One of them might play well, and the other one
I don't even think I'm saying they're going to dominate. I just think they'll both be good,
better.
solid.
Right, they'll be solid.
And I'm not as convinced on some of the offensive linemen that they're going to be as good.
That's more than fair, because I think we've said it often throughout this offseason of they addressed it, but did they really improve it?
Right.
We'll find out.
Yeah.
But it won't take a lot to be better, particularly at the tackle spot. Then your point is fair and valid about in the middle, about center and the two guards. The tackle play was so atrocious that it just everything else broke down because of it.
Like if you were going into the season and they still had Batonio, Teller, and what's his name, the center they had last year?
Postage.
Would you feel better about the offensive line if they had the two new tackles and those three guys in the middle?
I feel more comfortable because you know what you're dealing with.
Right.
It's
less of an unknown.
But there's nothing not that this proves I'm right, but there's nothing about last year's roster that I could say you'd rather have than this year's roster at wide receiver.
Right.
No.
So, and I think if the question is long term, I would definitely rather have the wide receivers.
Yes.
But that wasn't the question.
I would agree with that.
Yeah.
Just because of the youth and
Now, if Brailsford and the other kid, I can't remember the other offensive lineman they drafted, the tackle.
Fano and
Austin Barber.
Maybe they turn out to be good players too, and you end up getting three good offensive linemen out of this draft.
Well, at least what you have right now is you're not saying. Think about it. If you lose Pochich, you have Whippler. We don't know if Whippler, if you coming in with Whippler and that's your starting center, that's worse. We're not counting on DeJuan Jones. We keep saying DeJuan Jones.
Right.
If we done that for 4 years, he been injured every year. You're not counting on him. If he give you something, great, awesome, thumbs up. If not, okay, we got some other guys that we've drafted, right? I like the fact that they did draft Brailsford and say, okay, well, Teven or Elgton Jenkins, he's been injured. So let's go ahead and hedge our bet and get another guy so that if he's not ready to go, I feel a lot more comfortable with the fact that they know he's had an injury history, and they didn't just count on.
Yeah, that's true.
Like, hey,
and I do think they're better with the option B if Elgton Jenkins is healthy. I mean, if Brailsford proves he could start, the Jenkins is a better guard than the center. So
yes.
I think that's ideally the starting lineup.
And then think about it: if Johnson is not good, and Jenkins gets beat out at center, he's a better guard anyway. So if we say Johnson is not getting it done, they always can move Jenkins to the other guard and say, okay, well, you play guard, we can plug you in and move around a little bit.
That's true.
So you hedge your bet a little bit, but it's yet to be seen. That's why it's important to watch. If you're just in the weeds, it is important to watch preseason and some of these other games, because I think more than anything, we'll talk about quarterback the most, but there is other position battles that we'll really actually need to see. And offensive line is probably the biggest one.
Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, with the offensive line position battles, until they put on pads, it's impossible to judge anything with an offensive or defensive lineman. They're just simply going through reps. 1 point on the receiver or offensive line, which one improves more? I think it comes down to where you ranked or thought the position group ranked at the end of last season to see the jump. I think we all agreed the Browns receivers room was as bad as it got across the NFL last year with basically no upside. And to Bull's point, you are banking on all upside with this group because we've never seen Concepcion. We've never seen Boston. We haven't seen a full season of Isaiah Baum with an actual training camp before the season be incorporated into this system. And it's a new playbook and it's a new play caller. It's a giant unknown, but I think if these guys hit the way we think they can, the Browns could make a pretty significant jump from the worst receiver group in football to at least middle of the pack. I don't think they're going to blow anyone away.
I think they're going to be hard to. I think
play.
you get a little too carried away, middle of the pack as rookies.
You don't think they could be a between 15 and 22 receiver room
That's
this
a
year?
big
That's
difference.
not middle of the pack.
That's not.
Well, 16.
15's middle of the pack. 22 is not middle of the pack.
So what do you think the ceiling
Could
is?
they get as high as 22? Maybe. 15? No, that's unlikely.
What I'm looking
Gee,
for,
what do you think?
I'm looking for a good distribution. Like if I'm going to forecast it, I think Denzel Boston to me will probably ended up becoming your number one receiver at some point during the year because he just has more things and tools than the rest of them. So if you can get you if you can catch me and give me 800 yards from him, if you can give me 600 from Concepcion, right, plus some special teams, and if you can give me Isaiah Bond gives me 600, right, and then you squint your eyes a little bit, and if Jeudy gives you 5 or 6, and you're okay, well now I got a nice little even distribution where it's not it's not like they're gonna blow anybody away individually with their numbers. But it grows the floor a little bit. So you go into every game knowing, hey, we're not counting on Jeudy to get us 150 yards today and 2 touchdowns because that ain't gonna happen. But it is kind of difficult to get in the top third because you got people like CeeDee Lamb and Pickens on one roster.
Any team that has a legit number one wide receiver, the Browns have almost no chance of passing any of those teams this year.
Because they got
and there's
one.
plenty of teams that way.